The heliocentric science
is nothing more than a religion.
More specifically, a pagan religion, which places the sun, as its god, at the center of worship, around which all the planets, bearing the names of pagan deities, orbit in reverent obeisance.
100 years ago, we thought there was only one galaxy. Now, the number is unlimited.
It's an epical time in the history of human exploration.
And now I guess we've come to discover that the process of planetary formation may actually be something very common. And we're starting to understand that within our own solar system, and we're starting to see that in other solar systems, in other stellar systems as well.
Yeah. And that's part of the whole evolution since Copernicus, away from us being
unique, the center of the universe.
The principle is simple. It tells us we're nothing special, tucked away in some forgotten corner of a universe in which there are far more galaxies than people. We're nothing special. There are no special places or directions in the universe. No center, no edges, no up, no down, no left or right.
Because that's how our model works. There is no up or down.
The universe actually came from nothing. In fact, every measurement we can make about the universe is really consistent with a universe that came from nothing.
Nothing. Generally understood as the absence of anything, but sometimes used in modern cosmology to refer to an unseen form of something.
Something from nothing. A key concept in modern cosmology.
The reason that there is a universe and the growing perception that in almost every respect we are a cosmic commonplace.
Essentially, Copernicus was claiming to have found mathematical and physical proof for principles that are set out without proof in the Hermetic books. Contemporary Hermeticists certainly regarded him as a hero for vindicating their sacred texts.
It's great to be average, isn't it? With the prospect of having other worlds out there, perhaps even similar to our own, and perhaps even inhabited.
Absolutely. A very exciting moment to be alive and interested in these issues.
This is great.
And who can be interested? You got to be made of wood not to want to know where your planet comes from, where you come from.
Hermes' mystical scrolls were the spring of inspiration behind the celebrated pioneers of heliocentrism. Ancient pagan religions, as a rule, placed the sun at the center of their worship. To make this embarrassing detail more palatable, the fact was usually obfuscated by personifying the sun as some chivalrous leader of heroic escapades. While the modern graduate of Ratio Studiorum may look down his nose at these ancient pagans for believing such fanciful tales, he himself is steeped in the same old myths, repackaged in modern form. While the baser reproductions of pagan myth may be shrugged off as entertainment, so slick has been the sleight of hand that even those who deem themselves irreligious are, by virtue of their scientific beliefs, paying homage to the same deities as the pagans of antiquity.
When you think of the enormity of numbers, the fact that there are hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy and hundreds of billions of galaxies.
100 years ago, we thought there was only one galaxy.
The catalyst for society's shift from identifying as exclusively religious to increasingly agnostic can be traced back to Isaac Newton and his scientific discovery.
Through the last, Newton had come a vast new conception, destined to be fatal to the old theory of creation.
Newton postulated that an invisible force emanating from the sun held worlds in order, giving way to the paradigm that a mechanical explanation can be found for all the mysteries of life. Deism, a supposed knowledge of God based exclusively upon human reason, sprung up in the wake of Newton's discoveries. Newtonian laws rendered God's miraculous power redundant to the minds that received them. The effect being that men began to conceive of their infinitely loving Creator as an absent parent who took a backseat role in the affairs of men and the workings of their habitation.
Quite literally, there are more stars, more potential sites for planets and life than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of this planet. And, you know, if you go to the beach and run those grains of sand through your hand, you'd have to be crazy to believe we're the only ones out here.
I mean, it's barely possible, but to conclude that we're
unique is crazy.
I hope you will continue to be curious and follow this adventure as it unfolds over the next 2 years. All of Galileo's messages of
Exotic worlds and fantastic landscapes
are gifts we should all share and pass on. Because we go to Jupiter, not for our scientists and engineers, but for all of us.
and especially for our children.
The views of our blue marble in the blackness of space, now capturing the imagination, now capturing the imagination of a new generation.
We got the Nazi scientists over here from World War II, and then all of a sudden we got this program that went from planes in the NACA, to NASA, space.
Very interesting time.
And isn't it interesting that it was named after Greek gods? Apollo, Artemis. Did anyone ever wonder about that and why that was the case? Greek mythology was used as a means to explain the environment in which humankind lived, the natural phenomena that witnessed in the passing of time of the days and months and the seasons. Greek myths were connected to religion, but explained the origin and the lives of the gods, so it wasn't actually God, it's godless. And what it is 12 basic gods are the reason for the creation of Mother Earth. It was a reason to describe all of that and to put the heavy weight on nature and on the environment as the creation of us and the creation of all things.
That's the whole point of this. We're going to have to start conceiving of life as we don't know it.
Webb can see back in time all the way to the Let There Be Light moment, when the stars and galaxies first ignited after the Big Bang.
The origin of everything.
Everything we know about, everything we can see, me and you, everything on the planet, all the
hundreds of billions of other galaxies.
100 years ago, we thought there was only one galaxy.
All of that only makes up about 5% of the universe. The rest of it, that other 95%,
we have no idea what it is.
Will the history of astronomy be divided between before Webb and after Webb?
Yes, mission's over, right?
For 3 days, the team tried to get a response. And then, on the third day,
another miracle.
This isn't science, this is religion. It used to be possible to believe in a personal, benevolent, powerful, all-knowing God who cared about individuals who you could pray to. But now,
there's very few people who really believe that, I think.
Science, for good or for ill, has destroyed a lot of the traditional theologies. And yet people have the same needs to believe that they always did, perhaps more so because of the times we live in.
Yes, back from the 20th century. And believe me, you can have it. One big modern mess.
100 years ago, we thought there was only one galaxy.
Belief in God hits a new low. A new Gallup poll shows belief in God is declining, especially among the younger generation.
Now, first of all, lad, we've got to get all these medieval ideas out of your head. Clear the way for new ideas.
Mapping the world was the first step to conquering it.
A worldview that is incompatible with reality can't help but produce stress and anxiety.
If the boy goes about saying the world is round, he'll be so mixed up he'll be wearing his shoes on his head.
For some reason, liberals are way more likely to be depressed.
You have no original thoughts, and I like that. Zimmy's a follower. I'm a follower!
Worldview is so warped and out of touch with reality that your brain rebels at your cognitive dissonance.
You'll have to use your brain for a change.
You look at nature, you see predators and prey.
You see, my boy, it's nature's way. Upon the weak, the strong ones prey.
It's no more wrong than a lion eating a gazelle, which isn't wrong, it's just what happens.
Human life, it's also true. The strong will try to conquer you.
We are not particularly cruel animals. We are not more cruel than, I don't know, lions or alligators or whatever.
That is what you must expect.
They're just far more powerful. So we can do things that these other animals can't.
Unless you use your intellect.
That's their worldview.
Belief in God, just like adherence to nature, makes you more difficult to control. So if they can destroy the family, destroy God, and destroy your connection to other human beings in the natural world, then you are just a perfect mold for a new neo-feudal serf, a slave in the globalist system.
You are mindless blank slate. We are mindless blank slate.
The less religious they are, the less happy they are, the less in tune with reality and nature that they are.
Copernican principle leads to, ultimately, the idea that there is no God.
That we are nothing compared to the splendorous universe of ours.
I think it was actually one of the greatest things that ever happened to us. We had this arrogance, and we got it knocked out of us. And we realized that actually
we're insignificant and the future's miserable. So those are the two things we've learned. It always seems like we're the center of the universe, but we're not.
There's nothing special about humans.
So there are probably 100 billion solar systems in our galaxy alone.
There's nothing special about the Earth. In fact, our universe may be one among many universes. If our Earth really turns out to be special, then I would say, hey, God made a mistake.
You're trapped in a illusion that has been crafted for you by people who despise you.
The world is merely a tiny speck in the universe.
You have no purpose.
You have to understand that God is nature, and when you're out of whack with God, you're out of whack with nature. You're floating, disconnected from anything real, tangible, or legitimate. So of course you're going to be unhappy. Of course it's going to all seem confusing and chaotic and out of control.
Because it is. On purpose.
Use your head, will you?
I wonder what those sparkly dots are up there.
I don't wonder. I know. I don't wonder. I know.
I don't wonder. I know.
And I thought you were going to amount to something. I thought you had a few brains.
It's a battle of wits.
If the boy goes about saying the world is round, he'll be so mixed up he'll
be wearing his shoes on his head.
So what did science defeat? What did they defeat in 1600, 1700? What did they really overtake? Church. Okay. So if they admitted after 200 years, oops, the earth is not round, it's actually flat, what would be the first thing people would go back to?
Do you think people would still follow science, or do you think they would go back to the church?
It was the natural assumption of the ancient world to see the movements in the heavens as centered upon us.
If you look at pictures of medieval cosmology, then you see not only the Earth and the planets, but the outer sphere. Beyond that, you would have heaven. So that the Earth was considered to be at rest, ultimately, with respect to heaven, with respect to the throne of God.
Don't like being special, which is crazy, because we're nothing special.
we're also very brief, our 100-year lifespans. So how could we possibly be significant?
Giordano Bruno got burnt at the stake the year 1600 for writing about an infinite space.
He was burned alive in the streets of Rome in the year 1600 for simply saying that there are other worlds out there, that there's nothing essentially special about our world. So why would the Catholic Church burn this person alive in the streets of Rome? Because think about it. If there are other worlds, then the question is, are there people on these other planets? If so, do they have a savior? If so, do they have a pope? If so, how many saints do they have? Imagine 1 billion popes, 1 trillion saints. How many trinities are there? The mind goes crazy contemplating a universe of universes. And so what did the church do? They simply burned him alive.
Far from being a wellspring of life, Newtonian science became a riverhead of death, whose ever-swelling waters have drowned generations in infidelity. Working on the evolutionary principle of Darwinism, the Big Bang is the only explanation that can be given for the mechanics of the heliocentric model. It was the force of the Big Bang that placed the Earth in its orbit around the Sun, hurled the Moon into Earth's gravitational field, and set the sun in its motion through the galaxy. Thus, one cannot, with intellectual honesty, accept the heliocentric model without also accepting the Big Bang. For no other explanation can be found for the supposed vectors of stars and planets in science or revelation.
Henceforth, science would increasingly assert its independence from the influence of the church.
Science would be destroyed. Science would be, it would be the worst day they could ever possibly have, admitting that they were wrong about this.
People have had a brick wall placed in front of them because science has said certain things, and they said, you must stay over in this category here, and you cannot go into the God category because that's going to destroy our science.
People would go back to the Bible and say, oh, look, it could be literally true now.
In trying to figure out all these anomalies that they see in the universe that don't fit the Copernican principle, what this leads to is creating a whole bunch of universes.
I'm a great advocate of the multiverse.
There could be an infinite number of
billions and billions.
I call it a multiverse.
Somewhere in all those universes, there's going to be something that's not geocentric, you see. And that's how we can get out of the problem.
It's not fine-tuning.
It's not religious, like some people think.
You can take anything you want and you can explain it biologically.
Don't confront the face of God in a multiverse. You're just the result of a mathematical equation splitting infinitely.
It's a strange time in cosmology. It's an interesting time because we don't understand anything.
If you understand nothing, you understand everything.
So not only is all the evidence suggestive that we came from nothing, but the laws of physics tell us that it's to be expected that something comes from nothing.
Scientism's congregation are to imagine that they understand what is set before them, to convince themselves that it makes logical sense. 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike explains this occult method of initiation.
The blue degrees are but the outer or portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine he understands them.
It's really not that hard to understand. Children understand these things.
This just shows that he can't understand the
things that elementary school children do.
You have to work so hard to not understand things that small children understand.
When we come to recognize the deception regarding our world, we must not remain deceived as to what this is all about. When Rome's magicians pulled the heliocentric doctrine out from obscurity, it was for the purpose of marginalizing the Bible and crushing the Reformation. Scripture had to be defeated, and after her theology proved no match for that of the Reformers, the doctors of divinity simply became doctors of science and got to work fabricating an entirely new reality. If this Bible-contradicting paracosm was accepted, it would result in her victims rejecting not only the testimony of the scriptures, but also the testimony of their own senses. Such a complete state of disconnection would render her victims only one place in which to put their trust: the architects of the new reality. While both models, the flat earth and the spinning space ball, may be called religious beliefs, the former is correlated not only by the scriptures, but by the individual's own sensory experience and common sense. Whereas the latter requires the denial of one's own senses and the yielding of the subject's understanding to spiritual directors. The one that believes the evidence of his own senses and follows the convictions of his conscience is at liberty, his mind independent, his will his own. But when one feels bound to reject the testimony of his own senses in favor of a version of reality that he has neither seen nor tested for himself, he bows his intellect to the superiors and teachers who have done the thinking for him, waiting attentively upon them to tell him what he is allowed to believe. To stand for heliocentric science is to stand with Rome in the Counter-Reformation. In this modern cosmology conflict, all must settle the question within himself: which master do I serve? Rome or the Word of God?
Not everybody can be a robot polisher.
That's the whole point of this. We're going to have to start conceiving of life as we don't know it.
The let there be light moment, a Big Bang.
The origin
of everything.
Before web and after web.
And then, on the third day,
another miracle.